In 2004, the IIM Ahmedabad MBA cost 60,000 rupees. Today, it costs 26 lakhs. That's 4,200% inflation in just 22 years. Most parents saving for their child's education are working with a number that doesn't come close to reflecting the reality of how high the real rate of education inflation is. And inflation is only one of three problems. Getting a seat at any of the top colleges keeps getting harder every year. And if international education is anywhere in the picture, a weakening rupee is making that cost grow even faster than the tuition figures on their own. India's official education CPI runs at 4.13%, which implies that fees double roughly every 17 years. But the actual inflation on the degrees that most Indian parents are saving for has been something else entirely. The cost of an IIM Ahmedabad MBA has been growing at 18% a year, compounded for 22 years. The IIT BTech, 8 to 9% every year. XLRI Jamshedpur, 12%. The official inflation figure and the real one have been diverging for about 2 decades. And the gap is large enough that planning with an official number produces a materially wrong answer. The reason that this gap exists is pretty straightforward. These institutions are selling access to placement pipelines, alumni networks, and faculty with industry connections. And the people that are buying that access have no real alternative. When your child gets an offer from an IIM, you don't decline because the fees went up 20%. You take a loan, you liquidate whatever you have to, and you just find a way to make it work. Now that is inelastic demand, and it means that the price of something can keep going up until something breaks. And so far, nothing is broken. Now, let's say your child is 2 years old today and wants to finish in a top MBA school in 2046. That degree costs 26 lakhs now at 12% annual inflation, which is roughly what it has been for the last 20 years. The same degree costs approximately 1 crore 86 lakhs. Now let's add an undergraduate degree. That's 40 to 60 lakhs in 2046 money, and 14 years of private school, which has also followed similar inflation patterns. And the total cost of education sits somewhere between 3 and 3.5 crore rupees. These are projections based on historical rates, so they're not guarantees, but they're the most honest baseline that we have available for planning. So if you're a parent planning to save 20,000 rupees a month in a balanced fund that earns 10 to 12% annually, you would have saved roughly 1 crore 20 lakhs over a 20-year period. That's not bad, but it covers only about 30% of the number above. Now, let's talk about the seat. The seat that your child is aiming for is also getting much harder to reach. JEE Advanced had roughly 5 lakh candidates in 2010. Today, that number is close to 18 lakhs. Sure, IIT seats have also grown, but definitely not at that rate. The acceptance rate now sits below 1%. The CAT draws around 2.5 lakh applicants for roughly 4,000 seats across 6 old IIMs. That's a conversion rate of about 1.5% that is tightened every decade. NEET had 7 lakh candidates in 2013 and 24 lakh candidates in 2024. But the number of government medical seats did not triple. Now, most families plan for just one outcome. The child qualifies and the corpus covers it. But the realistic distribution of outcomes looks quite different. A drop year means an extra year of coaching fees and a delayed start to earning. A tier 2 college instead of an IIT leads to a separate decision about maybe funding a postgraduate degree at an IIM at the inflation-adjusted cost. The right school but the wrong branch is its own sort of trade-off. Now, to be clear, none of these are failures or even edge cases. That's just the reality of what happens when the acceptance rate is below 1%. So build a corpus that can cover more than just that one path. Now, if an international education is anywhere in the plan as a primary goal or a fallback, there's a second inflation problem that runs simultaneously. The rupee has depreciated by roughly half against the US dollar since 2004. That's 45 rupees to the dollar then and 95 today. The pound and the Australian dollar all have moved in the same direction. So a 4-year private US degree can cost close to $380,000 today. In rupees, that's 3.6 crores. The same degree cost the equivalent of roughly 25 to 30 lakhs in the year 2000. Now, that increase reflects both the tuition fee inflation in dollar terms as well as the rupee buying fewer dollars each year. Both forces compound at the same time. Some families might partially address the currency exposure issue through international equity funds or sovereign gold bonds. But there's really no clean hedge. The only other adjustment that a family can make is to simply account for it more explicitly rather than discovering the gap when the offer letter arrives. So, what can you do about all of this? First, let's use an 8 to 12% inflation assumption for premium domestic education rather than the official 4%. If IIM or ISB are the specific targets, the historical rate has been closer to 14%. So, build a corpus that's large enough to cover more than just that one educational path. Because the scenario that your child actually follows in 2040 is unlikely to match exactly the one that you map out today in 2026. And then if an overseas degree is a possibility, then add 3 to 4% annual rupee depreciation against the dollar on top of your tuition inflation. It's a real cost, even though it never actually appears on any fee document. Now, the last variable is time. A family that starts saving when their child is 2 years old arrives at the same goal with roughly 40% less per month than a family that starts when their child is 6. That gap does not close with just better fund selection. It only closes with time. And the window is open the longest only at the beginning. If you want to model your own numbers using actual historical inflation rates, there's a link in the description below. Plug in your child's age, the degree you're planning for, and whether an international education is part of the picture. The numbers will tell you where you really stand and how far you have to go. And that is always a better place to start than guessing. I'm Adit from Fabits, and this is exactly the kind of thing we help you work through. If you want to structure your finances around realistic numbers, there's a link in the description below to reach us. See you in the next one.